Good morning, it's Friday and welcome to Choir Leader in a Kayak episode 16. Sweet, innit? Today's episode is all about communication and language. Perhaps you don't know what I meant by sweet, innit? Because it's kind of language that I wouldn't tend to use. Anyway, so why language? Why communication? This week I've been absolutely fascinated by the use of language, and I've read some really great articles all about communication and self-help and help yourself. And I think, many of us in the world, wherever we live in the world, maybe you are in America, maybe you are here in good old Blighty, maybe you're watching from New Zealand or perhaps somewhere in Europe, I don't know, but we all have a common language, but so often so much is lost in translation. So today's episode is all about language and communication. I was fascinated by an article that I read this week all about self-help books that we have here in Britain, and how they are titled, and perhaps the same self-help books that one might find across the other side of the ocean in America, and how we choose the language we choose to use to help ourselves or to communicate with others can sometimes be very positive, or it can be rather negative. And I am a British person, but my early part of my adulthood and my first experience of working was for an American company. So obviously I was heavily influenced by that at quite an important and crucial time of my life. And yes, I worked in an industry where people said, "Have a nice day," quite a lot. And did it seem quite cheesy and slightly put on? It possibly did. However, I also find that British people, with their humour and their sarcasm, it's really great, and it's sometimes quite funny, but it's sometimes really quite misunderstood, and the message that they're trying to get across is perhaps somewhat lost, or perhaps hurtful without meaning to hurt somebody. So clear communication, as somebody who works in voice, is really, really important. It is Mental Health Awareness Week, and I believe that yesterday was Time to Talk Day. So I am a day late, but I think it's really important, some of the things that I want to talk about today. Sun's really bright, that's why I keep moving my face around. So you've got half of me a little bit like Phantom of the Opera. So there we are. So when I used to work on board aircraft, I was really aware that there was a lot of problems to fix. And if I was dealing with often with an American passenger, I would be really, really clear about what it was they wanted, because they had no qualms about telling me what they wanted and how I needed to fix it. And sometimes it would be quite in your face and quite frightening, but I knew what I needed to do so I could fix the problem. And when I'd fix the problem, that person would often say, "Thank you, I really appreciate it. Job done." We all know where we stand. This is it's a big sweeping statement I'm about to kind of create now. However, it is often very true of British people. British people don't kind of tell you what they need in the best possible way. They sort of complain and mutter under their breath, and they sort of expect people to know what to do. So we fix things, and then instead of saying, "Thank you very much, I appreciate it," sometimes you hear people saying, "Well, I should think so too." And again, it's all kind of negative, isn't it? As again, these are all really broad sweeping statements, so I'm not insulting anybody or making a dig at anybody who's watching this. But it's fascinating, isn't it? We speak the same language, and yet we don't speak the same language at all, and communication can become very, very difficult. My role as a choir leader is to try to help people communicate the lyrics and the intention of a song. I'm very, very lucky. I know some great composers and some wonderful songwriters, and it's my job to try to put across to an audience the intention of that piece of music. I have lots of lovely, lovely feedback from choir members, how they say that I always seem to pick the right songs that truly resonate for them. And I'm really proud, and thank you very much for noticing that, because I do take a lot of time and effort to try to get that right. and it's really appreciated that you value that, so thank you. So that is part of my role, and to have that connection ultimately with an audience, to portray that message within a piece of music, is a wonderful feeling. That's what every artist wants, is to connect with an audience. I read something fascinating this week again. It's all about music and how long a piece of music can help us release sadness. So there's some wonderful research revealed this week. It takes 13 minutes for a piece of music to help us release sadness or aid concentration. Lyrics within a song are particularly important for us to feel sadness and to kind of empathise with ourselves, actually. And it only takes 9 minutes, 9 wonderful minutes for a piece of music to make us feel happier. It is Mental Health Awareness Week. Yesterday was Time to Talk. I think it's really important that we communicate effectively, that we use language and words that our listener understands. We don't have to litter our conversations with incredibly interesting vocabulary. I'm not a particularly clever person, and I don't have a broad vocabulary, and sometimes in the past I've been a little bit ashamed of that, but I would like to think that I can communicate my feelings quite effectively, and if I can't do that, then I can turn to my music. The last thing I want to share with you this week is a wonderful Pause for Thought episode that I listened to yesterday. That's Thursday morning. And so these are not my words, these are the words of somebody else, and they truly resonated with me. It was a story all about a place in Paraguay where the world sends its garbage or its rubbish. It's a recycling place in Paraguay. And from the rubbish, people started to make musical instruments, and from those musical instruments, from poverty, an orchestra has been created. And the sentence that really resonated for me this week is that the world sends us rubbish and we send back music. That's part of my role when I lead a choir. It's part of my job and my joy to help people communicate how they're feeling, and if they walk into the room feeling like rubbish, that they feel safe enough to kind of let me know in some way. They don't have to tell me. It's my job to notice and to hopefully fix it, and for them to afterwards say, thank you, I really appreciate that. So whatever your language, however you communicate, I send you lots and lots of love. I could say, have a nice day, y'all, but that's not the authentic me. I'll see you next week. Mwah. Mwah.